All right, and as part of Women's Month, yesterday we had an interview on the show highlighting the plight of women in prison, particularly focusing on pregnant women. Former prisoner Morwesi Theledi was imprisoned for defrauding a bank she worked for as a senior employee. Theledi narrated the difficult conditions that she had to endure in prison. Today we invited the Department of Correctional Services to tell us how the department really upholds the rights of pregnant women and their infants. The department's spokesperson, Singabakho Nxumalo, joins us in our studio to give us some insights. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for coming through.
Afternoon, and thank you for having us.
All right. Now, let's first look at the rules and the regulations and the policy governing the issue around pregnant women in prisons.
Okay, firstly, we must explain that women are classified as a vulnerable group, meaning that the type of services that you give it to them, must receive the possible care, and that the conditions are more convenient, and it's something that a female inmate, can adapt to and will not experience challenges. Hence, we have the units that we call mother and baby units, specifically to cater for inmates with infants, or those who would be going on labor. We created this specifically to ensure that their special needs, will not be eroded by some of the conditions which at times, you may find in the general cells.
And this is where you keep these babies until the age of 2. What happened? Because if my memory serves me well, the initial policy was around 5 years. Why did it change in the first place?
Section 35E of the Constitution is very clear to say what type of services and the conditions that we must always uphold in our centers. With the intervention which came in during the era of Minister Mapisa Ngagula when she was still the Minister of Correctional Services, what was picked up is that keeping infants up until the age of 5, was not good, even in terms of the mental state of those kids, because they're excluded from the actual reality out there.
But there are instances where the inmates' families or relatives are not available to take care of the child. Do you consider that? Because from where we sit in Babu Nxumalo, it looks like the department is not being considerate for the children. They're punishing the children for their parents' sins.
Hence, we are saying the policy says up until the age of 2. But remember, in that space, it's not only the Department of Correctional Services. We work very closely with the Department of Social Development, where even from the date of birth, we start interacting with the family of the inmate to check who, at the end of the 2 years, would be in a position to take over.
And if there are no such family members, a child is put into foster care.
If we're unable, that's when then social development comes in and helps us to say what could be the best possible place for this child, to be kept at. But what we're saying is we do not just dump infants to say merely because the family is not willing. Then we ensure that at the end of the day, the infant, is not disadvantaged. Hence, even after the child has been placed out, we always encourage that there must be that constant interaction of visits between the child and the mother who is still inside our correctional facility, so that that bond is not lost.
All right. And surely you were watching the interview yesterday on the program when Morwesi was, narrating her story and telling us of the difficult health conditions they had to enjoy in prison. And she made an example of during her checkup in a month, she just couldn't. If you miss a checkup, that's it. Nothing happens going forward. And what came into my mind is the department has nurses, isn't it?
The Department of Correctional Services.
Why do they have to be taken to a hospital for a checkup, whereas they're in-house nurses?
Okay. The Department of Correctional Services has professional nurses on site, and also doctors, psychologists, social workers. So all these professional services are there. But what's happening is that some services may not be available in our centers. Hence, we then go out to establish these relations with outside centers. It could be Baragwana or any other nearest hospital to say, in a case where we have an inmate who must be treated for something that is not, that we are unable to do inside the correctional facility, we will then have to transfer that inmate to that external center.
But what happens when an inmate, can I just come, what happens when an inmate misses her appointment? Like Morwesi was saying that she missed her appointments due to the fact that she had to go appear in court and nothing happened. If you miss it, you miss it.
that can be very distant from the actual reality, because what's happening, every morning inmates register their requests and complaints, and from that we're able to pick up even those who say I have an appointment, to say I have an appointment, and if that is missed, those inmates have a right to request to see the head of center, and there are channels within which they can take.
But you'd agree with me that policies that are written on a piece of paper are totally different from the implementation thereof, isn't it?
What I can assure you...
Because this is what Morwesi specifically went through.
What I can assure you is that our systems on the ground are very tight, and there is adherence in terms of that. If there are gaps, those gaps could be minor, but there are even channels within which inmates can use to elevate their issues. For instance, if an inmate is to miss an appointment for whatever particular reason, there's a channel within which then the head of center must actually activate. Even if, let's say, the appointment was supposed to be at 9 and that inmate is late, we can even intervene to say to that particular service provider, please, kindly cater for this inmate is late due to the following reasons. But it cannot be that an inmate is denied access to that particular professional service.
All right. But that is what Morwesi told us, and you would agree with me that there are many centers around the world. Surely you cannot be able to speak to each and every center?
We only have 243 centers.
As I said, the rules and regulations and policies are there on a piece of paper, but the implementation thereof could be a challenge. We
only have 4,000 plus female inmates in this country. It's only 2% of the total inmate population. And we have sufficient staff in terms of ensuring that female needs for female inmates are being taken care of, because, as I've said, we consider them to be a vulnerable group. So those channels are there.
You're denying everything that she has said. She even went as far as saying when she experienced labor pains at 3:30 in the morning, the warder or your official only came in to check on her, not even to give her an assistance, but to check up on her at 7:30 later.
If that is indeed true, it's something that can be investigated. But what is happening is that female inmates who are about to go on labor, as I've said, are kept in the mother and baby unit, and there are always officials there. And in case there's an emergency case, those officials then take over, meaning to say, if it means that inmate must be taken to an outside facility, to facilitate that. If it means that inmate must be attended to immediately, we do that. But it cannot be that an inmate who's about to go on labor is kept in a general ward where there would be no assistance whatsoever, because our inmates are positioned at key points to ensure that if there is anything of an emergency, it can be attended to.
So what happens when they experience labor pains? Do they remain in shackles?
When inmates are inside our correctional facilities, they're not shackled. Remember, it's a secured environment.
When they transported to the hospital,
then what's happening is, for instance, a case of an emergency will be treated different from your ordinary case. For instance, if it's highly unlikely that, yes, it may happen that perhaps you were expecting to go on labor on a Friday, but on Wednesday, suddenly, then it means it's a case of an emergency. Then, we'll have to act on that. But ordinarily, we'll know that on a particular day, inmates so and so will be going on labor, and arrangements, will be put in place for that particular inmate. And we prefer to send them to outside facilities in case there are complications. But should it happen that it has to be done there and there, we have capable officials, who are there to attend to.
But do you think the department will reconsider looking into taking children away at the age of 2? Because Morwesi was in tears as she was telling us the pain she experienced when her son was being taken away from her. Surely this is not just a separate case, it's what many mothers in their feel.
It's quite a lengthy process in terms of even counseling them. We don't wait until the child is 2, then we say now we've got to separate you. We take them through the necessary counseling processes, getting the families involved. Your social workers play a very pivotal role in that, because with the 5-year-old, the challenges with that, many of those kids, for some of them will see a man for the very first time when they're 5 years old, and that is not normal. No. They will see a car for the first time when they're 5 years old. That is not normal. Hence, it was not in their best interest to keep them in prison until they're 5.
Time constraints, we have to leave it at that. I suppose we'll make another day and take this discussion further. Thank you so much for coming through.
It's a pleasure.
All right, many thanks to Singabakho Nxumalo, the spokesperson to the Department of Correctional Services, talking to us about how the department upholds the rights of women in prison. Let's take a quick break here on the show. There's still so much more to come.